Hi.
Hi,
How are you, Cindy?
I'm good, Dr. Millie. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
You're in Canada, right?
I am. I'm in Toronto.
Oh, I haven't been there in years. I used to like it there.
It is nice.
Are you on
Um,
vacation or are you visiting people?
I'm visiting my family this week.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So, um, I'm in a big house with like kids and dogs and cats and everything. One dog, one cat, one
You're
kid.
brave trying to get time to do a webinar when everybody probably wants to just hang out with you and make noise.
It just worked out that way. So if I'm interrupted, it's because of, what's going on, but
That's all
hopefully
right. Then we'll
not.
just keep
Hopefully
going.
everybody's set up and will be stable. And hi to everybody who's joined us. So nice to see everybody. And so I guess it's 12. So I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes. I will take questions at the end. You can feel free to use the chat button. Or if you see the hand wave button, then you can wave your hand if you want to ask kind of a live question, maybe towards the end. This is going to be an overview of your horoscope and your health. And I'm sure everybody has different levels of interest in astrology. And I've been studying astrology, well, for a long time as a hobby and only more professionally this summer. So this is my first time giving a presentation on astrology and health. Well, no, that's not true. I've recorded some videos about nutrition and health in the past, but this is my first time giving like an overview about astrology and health. So I'm really excited. And this is being recorded, just so you know. So you have the opportunity to show your face, not show your face. Probably best if you mute yourself, just so that we don't get any background noise. And then if you want to ask a question, that you raise your hand. This is also the first official virtual health club. RN and functional health coach Paula Leverick and I did a Facebook Live on Saturday that went over really well on heart disease, myths and truths. And I will be sending that out, the recording, but it's also still live on the NatMed Coach Facebook page. So if you're interested in that, we really discuss a lot about in terms of inflammation and the inflammatory process and how that's related to heart disease. Heart disease remains the #1 killer in America, and half the population is on statin medications. And so there's a big gap there between what we're doing right, what we're missing in terms of heart disease. And I think that naturopathic medicine and functional medicine do have the answers for that. So we discussed inflammation and oxidative stress, and we discuss blood pressure, and Paula gives her tips. And Paula's a functional medicine health coach, but she also has decades of experience as an RN, and she still practices as a registered nurse in the hospital. So she kind of sees everything, end of life care, as well, and emergencies, as well as practicing in her own prevention practice. So that was great. So that's available on facebook.com/NatMedCoach. But again, I'll also send out the recording of it over the Virtual Health Club listserv, which you're all a part of. And again, I want to thank you all for tuning in and being part of this first Virtual Health Club demographic. Some of you will be coaching. Some of you will be tuning in live, every session if you feel like it, or picking and choosing among your favorite holistic doctors and health coaches and functional medicine practitioners. And the recordings will be sent out after the meeting is over as well, barring any technical difficulties. But we're out of Mars retrograde, woohoo! And we're out of Mercury retrograde as of last week. So right now we don't have any technical excuses. But you never know, anything can happen. The recordings will be available for a month after. So they'll be available from the date on for a month, as long as you have a membership. So this first month is free to everybody, and everybody's first month is free, and that's the way that I'm going to organize the health club, at least for the time being. That the first month is free, and then after that, if you want to continue, it's $29 a month. I think that's an amazing piece to get access to all these health coaches and functional medicine practitioners and naturopathic doctors. And it is a group coaching session, the way that Health Club is organized, but you do get the opportunity to ask a question or two, and there'll be some on-the-spot coaching. Every coach will have a different style. We'll try to keep some similar formats, some consistent formats, but I'm letting every coach how they coach. And then, of course, we have concierge programs with NatMed Coach. So you have the ability to choose a program if you want to work with a specific health coach, if you want to work with a specific doctor, and we'll also curate doctors and health coaches together to be your health coach team if you do want to register for a concierge program. So we've got 6-month programs, 3 different tiers. We've got a starter, which is just health coaching, $99 a month for 6 months. We've got a standard concierge program, which is supreme, $299 a month. You see the naturopathic doctor as well as a certain number of health appointments with the health coach. And then there's a supreme, which is more visits with the doctor, more visits with the health coach, as well as you get a functional test with that. That's $519 a month for 6 months. So we're excited to have this is like a relaunch of the concierge program, because it's been running really for 1.5 years. And some people might have participated in that already. So we're continuing that on. And I think it's 12:05. So I'm going to share my screen. If any of you do have questions, just kind of general housekeeping questions on how Virtual Health Club will work, on any of the concierge programs, feel free to raise your hand, type it in as a message, or if you do want to send us an email at info@natmedcoach.com. We've been pretty good so far, I think, at timely response. And so again, I want to thank you all for being here. This is really exciting for me. I'm looking forward to seeing how the Virtual Health Club moves forward. Our intention is really to impact a lot of people, as many as possible, at a very affordable rate, get people involved in their health, personal health care. And the topic that I'm starting with today is a fun one, and I think it's something that people are interested in. It really explains in a scientific way. I do believe astrology is scientific because it's very mathematical, and but we tend to think of it just as entertainment, and it has to be presented as entertainment. However, if you think about it, we're all unique individuals, and nowhere are we more unique than in our birth chart. Our birth charts are individual, precise according to which day, which time, which year, which place you are born. And of course, there's only 12 houses, and there's only 12 signs, and these, there's a limited amount of houses and signs and planets. However, the configurations of them and the relationships and the aspects between them are all different, and it makes up each of us as individuals, as our genetics potentially. And so that's why I wanted to start with this topic. I think it's a really fun one to do. It's going to be a brief overview, but hopefully you will learn something. If you do know your birth chart, or if you do want to kind of follow along with your birth chart, then I'm going to, early on in the presentation, I'm going to discuss where you can find your individual birth chart. If you know the time that you're born, then you can find your ascendant or your rising sign. If you do not know the time, then you have to put in noon, and it's less specific. But even knowing your birthday, of course, which we all know our birthday and year, we should at least, then you can figure out your sun sign and your moon sign. And you're also likely to figure out which planet or planets are in your 6th house, which is the house of health. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to see if I can make it big. Oh. There we go. Okay, so your first virtual health club, your horoscope and your health. So this is a look at the zodiac wheel. So around the zodiac wheel, there's 12 boxes. The zodiac wheel is divided into a southern hemisphere and a northern hemisphere. And it's also divided into an eastern hemisphere, which is here in the west. Actually, the eastern is represented on the opposite. So the eastern is represented on the left and the western is represented on the right. And starting with your first house is this box right here. Now on the larger chart, this house is represented by the sign of Aries. Aries is the first house in the zodiac, and it moves along through the months. So we've got Aries and Taurus and Gemini and Cancer and Leo and Virgo and Libra and Scorpio and Sagittarius and Capricorn and Aquarius and Pisces. Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. And so typically we, on just a blank zodiac wheel, this does not belong to anybody. The houses, the planets and signs are all they're assigned to specific houses and signs. So Aries is assigned to the first house. Taurus is assigned to the second house. Gemini is assigned to the third house, and Cancer is assigned to the fourth house, and so on. But in our individual natal chart, these all get mixed up because when the time we're born, where we're born in the zodiac, it changes the entire configuration. And so we could have, for instance, Aries in the 7th house or Aries in the 8th house. Aries could be in any house in your chart, and it could also be alongside any of these planets. So when we're looking at a natal chart, so if any of you do want to go to look in your own natal chart, you can look at something like astro.cafe astrology natal chart, and you can put in your own birth date. So you put in your name, you put in if you're male or female if you choose. That really doesn't affect the sign at all. It only affects if you want to assess relationships with people, etc., further down the line. But we're not going to be covering that today. You can enter your date of birth, your month, your year. You can enter your time of birth, and then you just write in the city, and it will pop up all the names of that city everywhere in the world, and you should be able to find your city or your town. Click OK, and then what pops up is this, for instance. So this is this Joe Generic, born on January 1st, 1990 at 4 a.m. in Brooklyn, New York. This is this person's chart. And it doesn't necessarily need to mean anything to you, other than the fact we're going to focus on a few specific houses today and what they mean. And I just wanted to be able to show you, not that we're going to enter into chart reading or anything like that, but I just want to be able to show you on this how to make heads or tails of it. Now, astrology does test your left and right brain all the time because it's always causing us to match up words with signs, symbols. So anytime there's something that's pictorial as well as verbal, and in this there's nothing verbal, but we know that this is, for instance, numerical first house, and then we have to figure out, okay, what is that sign? What is that sign? It's Aries. If it just said Aries in writing, then it would only be like this, the left brain and the left brain, but because it also matches pictorial, it's also right brain. And so so this is kind of how astrology also tests us and keeps us very smart, just like Sudoku, or just keeps us from cognitive deterioration or memory loss later on in our life. So it's a good time to pick it up if you want to start learning some new skills. But so for instance, probably the most important sign in your chart is your sun sign. So your sun sign so for instance, in Joe's sign, the sun is this circle with this point. Joe's sun sign is in his 2nd house, and it's in the sign of Capricorn. So Joe's a Capricorn. He would call himself a Capricorn, and his sun is in his 2nd house. And so that means something, but we're not really going to get into that level of detail. But then we're also going to find the ascendant. The ascendant is your rising sign. This denotes what time you're born. The ascendant is always in this Western hemisphere. Sorry, in this Eastern hemisphere. It looks like it's in the West, but it's in the East. And it's always at this point. And it's always in your first house, your ascendant is. And so Joe's ascendant is Scorpio, because this is a sign of Scorpio. And so the ascendant is on the cusp between the 12th house and the first house. And it's all technically in the first house. And so the ascendant is very important because it's in the first house of identity as we relate to the world. The other sign that's very important is the moon sign, because the moon is about our feelings and our emotions. So the moon is depicted by this little crescent moon, and in Joe's sign house, it's 1, 2, 3. It's in his third house, and it's in the sign of Pisces. So Joe is Pisces moon sign. And so this all means something in terms of Joe's health. So the sun, and the three most important signs to notice, especially when we're looking at anything, but when we're looking at health, is the sun. The sun is who we think we are, how we interpret ourselves to be. It could be our identity as it relates to ourselves, how we want people to think we are, and also just how we want to build our consciousness and our awareness. Now, it does control our energy levels. And so if you are born with an energetic sun sign, such as like a fiery sign like Aries is a very energetic, action-based sign. So if you're born with something like Aries, then you would likely be an energetic person and somebody with a lot of vitality and potentially fire. So you'd have the good things that go along with that sign, and you'd also have the bad things that go along with that sign. So in terms of qualities, the sun itself, the best quality is that it rules its own domain. So the sun describes who you are. And so all those characteristics of the sun being in a certain sign, its worst quality in terms of just general is that it can become overbearing, it can become controlling, it can become dictatorial. So the sun is, now if you have a very passive sign, like if you have a very yielding sun sign like Cancer, Cancer is a very emotional, nurturing sign generally, but a sun sign Cancer could be very willfully nurturing or very willfully emotional or even dictatorial in their emotions. And so we can have the health benefits of that, and we can also suffer the consequences of that. So we can have the health benefits of being very nurturing and tender and being able to connect emotionally with people and wanting to nurture people and care, and maybe that involves cooking good food. But then we can also have the downsides of that in terms of health, which might be eating too much, gaining too much weight, being emotionally needy, having a lot of emotional needs. And so Cancer and Aries they're not opposite signs on the zodiac wheel, but they are very different because one's fire and one's water. One's very kind of action-based and assertive, and the other is very kind of sensitive and nurturing. So for instance, those would be two examples of different people and their sun signs and all the health benefits that go along with that. So this is just general, but I'm going to get into the health. I'm going to get into who rules, what each body part is ruled by in terms of each sign. So, and then I'm also going to get into areas of strength and weakness. So the moon is how I feel. So your moon sign. So if you can locate what your moon is in the zodiac, it describes how I feel. So somebody might see you, or you might present as, a very passionate, sensual, sexual, even Scorpio, but you might feel, if your moon sign's in Virgo, you might feel like you're very analytical or too detail oriented or too picky, and you might not be really in touch with your like sensual, sexual side. So there can be conflicts between what your sun sign is and what your moon sign is, depending on where these planets lie in your chart, and also whether or not that they have a good aspect or a bad aspect. So if the aspect says that they get along, they nurture and support each other, or if their aspects are, square or opposing, and then they might kind of create conflict in oneself, let alone how we relate to the rest of the world. So the moon is adaptable, the moon is yielding, the moon cares about other people, the moon is concerned about our own feelings. And so if your moon is in a very, let's say, emotional sign, so like could be Pisces, then you could feel very sensitive, you could feel very in touch with other people, like intuitive or psychic, but you could also feel very hurt very easily or be oversensitive. The emotionality of the moon also means that it can change its mind on a whim because it's not very dedicated. So we know how fast our emotions can switch, especially emotional people. Their emotions can switch very fast. And so the kind of the worst quality about your moon sign is this inconsistency, flippancy, unreliability. It could be so Cancer is actually the sign that's ruled by the moon, and so Cancer would be kind of the bad sign of the Cancer would be that it's inconsistent or changes its mind at a drop of a hat based on how it's feeling, and maybe not be able to keep plans. Whereas the best side of it is that it's very, very adaptable, very changeable, very open to change, flexible. Then there's the Ascendant. So the Ascendant is the third, at least the third most important sign. So again, your Ascendant can be in any of the 12 zodiac signs. It could be in the same sign as your sun. It could be in the same sign as your moon. I've been reading charts this summer, and I've never seen a sun, moon, and Ascendant the same. Theoretically, they could be, but it is often that, it does happen frequently that somebody has the same sun as Ascendant, or somebody has the same sun as moon, or same Ascendant as moon. And then that just kind of strengthens how you identify with that sign if you have more than one planet, especially these important planets, these identity planets in one specific sign. And also it enforces how it relates to your health and whether or not you carry the upsides, the protective benefits of the sign, or the detrimental, harmful or hurtful or vulnerable aspects of the sign, and to what degree. So the Ascendant is all about how we relate to the other world and to the other people. And so it's a lot about first impressions. It also rules physical appearance. And so not just in terms of vanity or looks or something, but that can also mean what our features are, how our body functions, the biochemistry of our body is ruled, and what our daily habits are in terms of eating or activity levels or waking times are kind of ruled by the Ascendant. So the Ascendant could actually even be more important for our health, especially if we're looking at lifestyle causes to illness, or if we're looking to help correct somebody's lifestyle, because we can actually, or if we're looking to correct our own lifestyle, because we can look to what the Ascendant sign is and say, okay, these are the strengths of that sign, these are the weaknesses to that sign. How can I course correct and be a better, version, and accentuate or protect myself, accentuate the strengths and protect myself from the vulnerabilities of that sign. So we always see, you might be a person who checks your zodiac, you might check your horoscope, you might look into what's happening on a weekly or a monthly basis. You might check out YouTube videos. I certainly do. Or you might read it in the newspaper, go online. But hardly ever are they talking about the health aspects of all the signs. And this is an area that I find really interesting. And especially in Vedic astrology, which is the Eastern astrology that comes from India, they do assign organ systems, diet, nutrition, and disease to the zodiac and to our personal charts, and even to the point where it's called medical astrology. So there's a whole branch of astrology called medical astrology, which is something that I'm starting to study and try to understand as it relates to my patients, and just as it relates to my understanding of medicine in general, because it's really something in the West that we have not delved into. And so this is what we're going to talk about as relates to the different signs. So again, just to recap, if you go to the Astro Cafe Astrology, look up natal chart, look up your birth chart. You can find out what you don't have to read the wheel. You can actually read a whole lot of, if you click OK on that, then you can read a whole lot about yourself. But once you start to read, then it can kind of get a little bit sticky with, anyway, it's not really working right now for some reason, but it can get sticky as to, okay, what am I supposed to pay attention to? So when you do read your astrology chart, then you want to pay attention to your sun, you want to pay attention to your moon, you want to pay attention to your ascendant, maybe especially your ascendant when it comes to lifestyle, which planets each of these signs is in, and how you feel like it relates to you. And you will intuit that also. So when it comes to astrology and when it comes to our characteristics and how that plays out in our health, then, hi guys, can you go upstairs? Can you go upstairs? Because I'm on a call. Thank you. So as it does play out, we have to learn to listen to ourselves. And so this is another reason why I wanted to talk about this today, and hopefully we'll have a bit of time at the end to talk about this, is how to use our intuition to understand our own health strengths and our own health weaknesses, and to start to notice patterns within ourselves. Because the more systems of medicine I study, the more I realize that there's such a thing called constitution. And constitution is a drawing board or a blueprint for the health that we're born with, the health that we bring into this world, on which our health has either improved or gotten worse over time with different conditions we've suffered from, or illnesses we've had, or maybe protective measures we've taken. So, and our intuition, we can use our intuition, which is that place deep inside us, you call it your gut, or you call it your own self-knowledge, your self-awareness, to notice and to use it in a practical way, how to pay attention to when you do get sick and what it feels like. For instance, how do you get a cold? What happens when you first get a cold? It's different for everybody. It doesn't always start the same way. Some people sneeze. Some people get a runny nose. You get a runny nose. Do you get white mucus? Is it bland or is it burning? Some people get a sore throat. So even breaking it down to how you present when you're unwell. How do you know that a cold is coming on so you can protect that from happening in 2 days or 3 days time, and take measures now, whether it's rest or hot liquids, and what feels best. Some people cold liquids feel better, some people hot liquids feel better. So it's getting a sense of to understand our own, what's best for us as individuals and not what's best for the general population. And so most everybody on this call, I assume, is either completely fully into integrative health and natural medicine, or at least exploring it. And whether you're on the fence or not in terms of astrology, that's okay, because it's only really another tool to pay attention and to try to create a landscape for yourself so that you can see yourself better. Now, colds and flus, of course, is not the only way to look at it. We look at it in terms of understanding what food is best for us, in terms of how do we feel after we eat that food. Do we need to fall asleep, or do we have energy to go on? Or if we eat that or drink that, do we wake up in the middle of the night? Does it disrupt our 24-hour body clock? So all the things that we might consider, oh, that's normal for me to have, let's say, have loose stool first thing in the morning, but really is a sign that, okay, something's not working right. And we can use astrology to further that. And so I hope that this is clear, and is also not too simple, that you maybe learn some things about yourself with this information. I know that I do. I use astrology and I understand myself better all the time with it. And we are really our best science projects. We are really our most important, I don't want to say guinea pig, but we all really are our own best friend and our own best doctor. And you can become a better doctor to yourself if you understand more aspects of how you function normally and what it feels like when you're off. And if you're not used to, if your normal is not good, usually, if your normal is off or is unwell, or if it has been like that, then we can also use these things to kind of bring us back to a place that's more normal or better. So, and this also, it's not just physical, this is emotional and this is mental, and certainly lifestyle goes into this. And it's energetic also, it's energetic. It's how we feel about ourselves in the world, how we receive other energy, whether we can cope with other people and their energy, not just even their habits or their annoying, cough on the subway, but just even the proximity of people to us, or just all of these things that are constantly impacting us on a daily basis. If we feel smooth or in flow about it, then we're at a better place of health than if we're bothered or stressed out by it. And so even subtle things like that can make a difference. Okay, so we're going to start with Aries. Aries is the baby of the zodiac. Aries is related to the first house, and Aries is ruled by the head and the face. And Aries is a fire sign, so Aries can get very angry. And so Aries is kind of a potentially stressy kind of sign, and the glands that Aries rules are the adrenal glands, the hyperenal glands that sit on the top of our kidneys that produce cortisol. So this means that Aries has the potential to have headaches, to have blood pressure issues that show up in the head and the face, to have eye problems, to have congestion, to have sinus problems, and then also conditions related to stress. And conditions related to the stress, especially that play out in the head. So that could be allergy season or inflammatory conditions, migraines, headaches. And Aries people are very active, as I mentioned, and they are best when they're active. If an Aries person is held back for some reason to be sedentary, then that's really not going to be what's best for them. Of course, we all go through cycles. I mean, I don't know if I've joked to any of you, but I've joked to some people that I was waiting for 5 years to feel like doing exercise again. And I was doing yoga during that time and walking and everything, but I mean real exercise, physical exercise where I want to sweat. And somebody said, you're waiting to feel like doing that? That sounds crazy. But I knew that was going to come because I knew that that's an aspect of myself. And my sun sign's not Aries, my moon sign's Aries. But when you feel like doing something, when you feel like, it's like the tide is coming in, and for you to pick up something again and change, then that's part of intuition and how our intuition works with the universe and what's going on in the moon and the stars during that particular time, because that can really influence us. And if we can read our bodies right, and me picking up CrossFit when I felt like picking it up makes it much easier, even if I didn't do it for 5 years, makes it much easier for me to do CrossFit because I wait to get the sign and the signal for myself that I'm ready to do it. Whereas if I had forced myself to do it, I might form a negative relationship with CrossFit, never want to do it again, and my intuition could be off. So for example, Aries people they have excellent muscle coordination generally. And then they're also noted for being sexually energetic, which is also, of course, part of our health. And so Aries needs well-balanced diet. They need good protein, lots of vegetables. They need regular meals in order to maintain their strength, in order to maintain their stamina, in order to maintain their energy level. Taurus is an earth sign. Taurus is the second sign in the zodiac. So Taurus is ruled by the neck and throat area. And so you might see that we're kind of moving down in the body, starting at the head and moving down. So Aries is the head and Taurus is the throat and the neck. The thyroid gland is there, so Taurus has the potential to suffer from thyroid issues, from laryngitis, from tonsillitis, from the adenoid issues, singing vocal cords, palate, and they also might put on weight as they get older. They are a very stubborn sign, so their metabolism could slow down. Very vulnerable to anything that happens here. So very vulnerable to colds, coughs, sore throats, swollen lymph nodes, pains in the neck, injuries, whiplash in the neck. They tend towards fattening foods. And again, so just because you're a Taurus sun sign does not mean that this fully explains you. You might find that you have more affinity towards what your rising sign or your moon sign is, and that's totally normal and fine. And of course, you're always a combination. So you know, don't panic if you're a Taurus and this doesn't sound like you. Don't panic if this is a Taurus and does sound like you either, because that's why we're learning this information, to kind of make sense of it, and so we can put practical things in place so that we can kind of do the best with our sign. So fattening foods tend to kind of be more sedentary, don't like to exercise or move very much, and might suffer from also facial issues, puffy eyes, inflammation in the kind of throat, jowl issue. Face can kind of sag and get jowl issues as we get older, if puts weight on, and also can get very, very tired, can get very, very stressed, tense in the shoulders, again, coughs and stiff necks. Oh no. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. Gemini. So Gemini is the third sign in the zodiac. Gemini is an air sign. Gemini is a double sign. So they are twins. And so Gemini, you know, is crazy sign, but it's because they're very smart, they're very quick-witted, they're very good as speakers, and they're ruled by their shoulders, their arms, their hands, and their lungs. So kind of this portion of the body, that's Gemini. And they have a susceptibility to respiratory infections, bronchitis and asthma, breathing difficulties, gasping, shortness of breath. Gemini also rules the nerves. And so Geminis can be quite excitable, high-strung, and then suffer from conditions due to that. So anxiety, and also the central nervous system, not just the nervous system as we think about our frazzled nerves, but also in terms of the central nervous system, the brain. It could be autoimmune conditions or degenerative conditions related to the brain, central nervous system, but it also could be depression and mood disorders related to the brain. So Geminis do have kind of quite a bit of health potential issues that they bring forward. And it also governs kind of this association between the mind and the body, because it governs the central nervous system, the CNS. And the Gemini state of mind, whether they're feeling stressed, whether they're feeling torn, whether they're feeling like they're being overworked, it does have a lot, is really controlling their mind-body connection is really important when it comes to their health. So for Geminis, you really have to be careful to, not to overwork yourself and not to become too stressed out, because then it can translate into a lot of physical problems. And then Cancer, I've already spoken a little bit about Cancer, so for some reason my favorite sign to pick on. And I am a Cancer rising also, so I probably am familiar with Cancer. But Cancer rules the breast and the stomach. So again, we're moving down from the top of the zodiac. It rules the breast and the stomach. As I mentioned, it's a nurturer. So it is about nourishment, it's about motherhood, it's about love, giving love, receiving love, and also conditions related to lack of love. Cancer very much suffers from that. So, breast cancer, 1 in 9 women are getting breast cancer. Are more cancers getting breast cancer? I don't know, but this is a kind of hallmark condition. Energetically, breast cancer is kind of associated in Chinese medicine with a lack of nurture from an energetic perspective, blocked love, not being able to receive the love they wanted, or being cut off from motherhood in some way, even the expression of love being blocked off. Cancers do tend to also have issues with their stomach, with their digestion. They feel sick in the stomach. If they get emotional, if they get upset, then it tends to go to their stomach. They might be emotional eaters. They have a big susceptibility towards gaining weight. Cancer is a water sign, and the first water sign of the zodiac. Very emotional, prone towards tension, anxiety, emotional distress, especially where their feelings are concerned. Not just, whether work is busy, but they'll take everything personally and be very hurt by it, and have tendency towards IBS, upset stomach. Lactose intolerance is definitely a big condition that cancers would suffer. Be prone to ulcers, gallbladder, gas, pain, nausea, upset, indigestion, you name it. And all the water signs can overindulge in alcohol. Not that the other signs can't, but the water signs don't tend to be able to tolerate it very well. So Cancer fits into that as well. Alcohol might make them feel sick, not digest well, give them acid reflux, heartburn, things like that. Then we're into Leo. Leo is a very energetic sign, has big vitality. They're ruled by the spine, the back, the spinal column, the heart. They are orientated towards the 5th house, which is the house of love and dating and sex, and also courage and showing and expressing emotion in a positive and open way. Leo rules the spleen and vitality. So spleen is an immune organ, a very energetic sign, very boisterous sign, very healthy sign. And when they're healthy, then especially when they're young, they do tend to be into vigorous exercise and for a long time. They're very warm in sharing their feelings or emotions. Kind of energetically, they have a strong back, which is a metaphor for courage, robust constitutions, great coordination, great athletes, excellent dancers, and but also their upper back might tire because they're supporting a lot. They might feel they are providers. Leo tend to be providers, whether they're women or men, and they might also feel the strain and the stress of that and be subject to that in their body. They also do have a tendency, especially if they have not paid attention to their athletic kind of need, to be very physically active. They could get heart disease later on, especially if other risk factors align, although they are noted for their longevity. But they do have to kind of like slow down. It might be very difficult for Leos to slow down as they age, especially if they have developed a heart issue or something. It might be very, very difficult for them to kind of slow down, not play soccer anymore, not play, go for like 24-hour bike rides anymore, even though they're like, 60 years old or something. So that's the Leo constitution. Virgo is an earth sign. We're in Virgo right now. So we just left Leo and we just got into Virgo. And Virgo dictates the nervous system and rules the nervous system and the intestines and assimilate food. And it's normally the small intestine, so where we digest and absorb fats and proteins and carbohydrates. This generally is the Virgo. IBS tends to be an issue with Virgo. They can really, so again, this is also a strong gut-brain interaction because Virgos tend to worry. They're very detail-oriented. It's been said that Virgos are the smartest sign of the zodiac because they're very, very focused on detail, but that can also cause problems for them. They have a tendency to turn trouble onto themselves, not very communicative. And then they could get a physical ailment, not knowing where it came from, like in the intestine or in the abdomen. So diverticulosis, diverticulitis, digestive issues. Again, very picky eaters. And being a picky eater for a Virgo actually might be very protective of them. So we do also have to, so that's an intelligence that Virgo has, is their pickiness, and their fastidiousness, as long as it doesn't turn into, again, worry or, overthinking everything. But knowing that their systems can't digest certain things, for instance, might be a very, very smart, intuitive protection mechanism for the Virgo. So they do tend to worry about their health, be hypochondriacs, for instance. I do know quite a few Virgos who could be considered to be a hypochondriac. Their ruling planet is Mercury, which has dominion over the brain and the nervous system. And this is kind of like the frazzled, frenzied, similar to Gemini in a way, but more intestinal, whereas Gemini is more in the upper part of the torso. Libra is the sign of balance. Libra rules the kidneys and the lower back and the butt. They are generally healthy. They're a very balanced sign. They're an air sign. They tend to be free-spirited, and they kind of, in being free-spirited, they don't lock themselves down like Virgos do, and they're not so much run by a schedule. So this could be very protective again for them. Libra rules Venus. Venus is the planet of love and beauty. It holds Libra in high regard, and so it rules the skin and the hair and the veins, throat, kidneys, lower back. So Libras are kind of coined as the most beautiful sign, and so they might be kind of very well put together in terms of physicality. They could be dancers, but then they're also prone towards like a weak lower back and lower back pain, and tends to be the first place, you know, they might slip a disc, or they might put out their back, or they might get back spasms, and they're also disposed towards acne and skin breakouts and kidney ailments. So whether that's nephritis or urinary tract infections, kidney infections, they're not the only ones with urinary tract infections, but kidney infections. And they do need a balance. They need to balance everything in their life. Libras do. They are the sign of balance. They are the scales. And so they need to balance their work and their work life and love and their friendship and their social and their being home. They need to balance their nutrition and their sleep and their energy expenditure. And so they need to balance, and they need to balance how much time they're with other people versus focusing on themselves. So it's very important with Libra. And I'm just going to have to take 1 minute because I have to plug my computer in. Sorry. Okay, so that's Libra. And then next is Scorpio. Scorpio is a water sign. Scorpio is ruled by the sexual organs. So they tend to be they're ruled also by the 6th house. No, sorry, they're not. They're ruled by the 8th house. Death and kind of rebirth and transformation, sexual organs. So they are predisposed to venereal diseases, STDs, HPV, warts, things like that. Also cancers down in that area. Highly sexed, they're highly sexed sign. And but they're also known for their energy, for their imagination, their creativity. They are one of the most psychic signs. So they can also be disturbed by kind of their knowledge of the world, and they're a very deep sign. Actually, they're very deep thinkers. So they're prone to problems and infections of the sex organs, eruptions, cystitis, or bladder infections, urinary tract infections. And so they do share that with Libra, which is the sign right beside them in terms of kidney infections or urinary tract infections, but Scorpio is kind of a little bit lower down. And they do take a lot upon themselves. They are highly emotional, but it's kind of about the depths of the emotions, so the darker emotions. And they're not very expressive necessarily. And so they can suffer problems with depression or even with psychotic illnesses because they might not intervene on themselves early enough. And they might be fascinated with darkness and death and paranormal and things like that. So emotional difficulties can cause big problems with Scorpios. Sagittarius, fire sign. So again, we're going down further into the body. The Sagittarius are ruled by their hips, their thighs, the liver, so their detoxification organs, and also their pituitary gland. So they do have a hormonal aspect. The pituitary gland is the secretor, which provides hormones for the thyroid, also the adrenal glands. And there's also kind of a circadian rhythm, so a diurnal rhythm, the 24-hour body clock associated with the pituitary gland via the pineal gland. And so there's kind of this brain relationship with Sagittarius. Sagittarius, physical activity is a must. This is a fire sign. They need to be out and about and doing things. They should not be homebodies. They usually are lean and slender in their early years, but gain weight kind of very rapidly, and like overnight, it looks like their entire bodies have changed, and this can be very disappointing and bothersome for a Sagittarius. Chronic aches in the hips, thighs. It doesn't mean that they can't lose the weight, but they kind of need to like step it up and do something radically different. And they also might, be very bothered with chronic issues associated with sciatic nerve, also gout, so the collection of crystals in their blood, high uric acid, which would be, they would suffer pains in their toes or in their fingertips or in their ears even if they had gout. But keep in mind that this is, a liver and a urinary tract issue. So it's not exactly a condition of the fingers and the toes. That's just where the body sends it to protect it from the vital organs. So hip disease, and they might kind of lose a limb or something like that, especially if they were diabetic. If they had gout, they might lose a limb, or they might get injured or suffer an injury in their hip and never be able to recover from it, or have to worry about this and really have to focus. And so, an osteopath, body work, very important for Sagittarius, because they do also need to continue in order to be healthy. They need to continue to be active. And so finding a way to be active sometimes with chronic pain can be an issue for Sagittarius. Also, another sign that suffers tremendously from alcohol, not so much because of the emotional aspects of it, like the water signs. Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio suffer more emotionally and mentally because of the impacts of alcohol, whereas a Sagittarius is directly because of their liver. So if they drink alcohol or if they take too much Tylenol, they might suffer from low glutathione, poor liver detoxification, hepatitis, issues associated with that. Capricorn, earth sign, very stable sign. Capricorn rules the bones, the knees, the joints, the teeth. They're beautiful bone structure is Capricorn, along with Leo, Sagittarius. Capricorn is also noted for having a very long and healthy life, but they can have vulnerabilities in their joints, and so if they were dancers, then they would get like more knee problems, elbow problems, wrist problems if they're anywhere in their bones, bone thinning, osteoporosis, also neuralgias, orthopedic issues. Their ruling planet is Saturn. Saturn's a planet of restriction, and so Saturn rules the gallbladder, so that breaks down fat for us by accumulating and concentrating bile, so we can break down fat. Again, touches upon the spleen, the immune system, our skin and teeth. Our teeth, of course, are part of our bones, and the calcium and vitamin D absorption is important for Capricorn. It is an earth sign, so it's very much about physical structure. They also have a problem with alcohol consumption because they can't stop doing things in excess. They tend to, if a little bit's good, then more must be better. That's kind of a Capricorn thing. And so they could get into patterns where they're not, eating regularly, not sleeping regularly. They might have mania, or they might get more joint pains, or drink more alcohol, and then, or eat like too much at one time, binge, or just consume, eat only one meal a day, but have 3,000 calories or something like that. So they could suffer from kind of this excess, which they might not appear to be doing that because they're actually a very grounded sign, but you might have to inquire more deeply as to, what they do when they're stressed or what they do when they're busy. They're very focused on work. Capricorns are, they're very reliable, and they're very ambitious. So they do tend to be healthy, but anyway, they can mostly suffer from bones, teeth, connective tissue, skin, joints. Then there's Aquarius. Aquarius is an air sign. They're the water bearer. They're 11th sign of the zodiac, associated with groups of people that they identify with. Aquarius rules the circulatory system, so the veins and the arteries, but also lower down on the legs, calves, shins, ankles. Those parts can be fragile or small or underdeveloped compared to the rest of the individual. They are generally strong, healthy, good coordination, slender ankles, and they tend to be more mental. They are an air sign, and air signs are associated with intelligence and kind of quick-wittedness. So that's also Gemini. That's also Libra, though Libra's a little bit more balanced than intelligent, but Aquarius are also not, they're kind of like the unruly side of the zodiac. They are eccentric. They need to kind of do what they want. But they're very active mentally, whether it's kind of figuring out what the unconventional route would be. They're not so physical. They can be healthy throughout their life, and then again, another sign that tends to put on weight as they age, or if they're not physical enough. Also, they can get plaquing in the arteries. They can get anemias or suffer from too little B12 or too little iron. Raynaud's disease, so not good circulation, low blood pressure, not having enough good salts in the diet, or not having enough physical activity to keep their blood pressure high. And they also like to immerse themselves in projects so much. They might not really eat a regular diet or have a balanced meal, and they tend to be snackers and eating on the run. So that's the Aquarius. And then the last sign of the zodiac is Pisces. So this is associated with the 12th house. This is kind of the more psychological, subconscious house. Pisces are ruled by the feet and the toes, and also the mucous membranes. So the mucous membranes are all that tender skin, everything inside our nose, inside our mouth, all the lumen of all the intestine. Pisces, being the last sign, also has an element of every sign in there. So, which means the psyche, but also the mucous membranes, because the mucous membranes really line every area of our body, so they could be prone to those things. Pisces can have, nice feet, but also they could also have weaknesses in their feet. They tend to have really good perception, taste, smell. Again, where the mucous membranes are, but they have very delicate constitutions. They do not tend to be very healthy. They tend, or not that it's not they're healthy, but they're very, very sensitive. They're very vulnerable when it comes to infections in the mouth, not teeth problems, but gum problems, sinus problems, flora issues, high blood pressure because they're holding water, or if their breasts are becoming engorged, if they're having PMS. So it's kind of all these areas where there's a fluid exchange or osmosis exchange in and out of the tissues. This kind of rules Pisces. So they can have a lot of ailments. They can have a lot of ailments in different areas of their body. Also, they're a water sign, so they are emotional, and they can have issues with their feet, warts, or bunions, or blisters, things like that. They also are, again, emotional sign. They tend to be intuitive and dreamy, and not like to really keep a schedule. And so they might kind of do things that happen at night, drink excessively, which is really not at all good for them. And but they can course correct pretty easily because they are very sensitive to lifestyle changes. And so they, even though they have kind of a big perceptibility to many health issues, they can assert themselves and make some changes with their diet or their lifestyle, their sleep. Then they can feel better pretty quickly as a result. They can kind of bounce back. So those are the signs of the zodiac. So the challenge is to look to see who you are on your sun, which you probably know already, and see if that makes sense for you. And then to also look into your moon sign, which is your emotions. So which sign is your moon sign? Does that feel on point for you? Do you understand the different aspect about your health or about yourself, your emotions, your tendencies, your constitutions, your likes, your dislikes, etc. And then also your ascendant. So again, your ascendant has a lot to, sorry, there's a lot going on. So, okay, so my sister's dog walker just came to take her dog to the park. We're having a little bit of a, okay. So sorry about the interruption. And I promise it will not be like this every time. So you want to find out, again, your ascendant sign, because your ascendant can be how you relate to the world, what your preferences are, how you are when you meet people, not only how you are when you meet people and what you give off, and that could be entirely different than how you feel or how you identify, but then also susceptibilities to your impression of others. So how people make you feel when you meet them. Does that set you off? Does that ruin your day? Does that put you in a bad mood? Are you sensitive to that? Do you get germs or focus on germs from other people? So this can be tied to your ascendant sign and how you interact with kind of the world at large, especially interacting with the world that is kind of unfamiliar to you. So we're not talking about like how your family makes you feel so much. That can be actually more about identity and in terms of I am that this is who I am. And you might want to veer towards your family or away from your family as your identity, that's fine. But the ascending is more about who you are when you're meeting people for the first time, or when you're in new situations, or how situations take you by surprise. And so that has a lot to do with our health, especially if we're, the kind of person who's always putting ourselves in new situations, or if we're risk takers, or if we tend to like things to be very constant and like to prefer to be in neutral environments or environments that we're familiar with. And so then the sixth house, I want to highlight the sixth house. You want to, and again, the sixth house is the house of health. So the sixth house is the house that rules our biochemistry. It rules our own individual health. It rules how we cope with stressors, just generally, how we deal with adversity, what happens when things aren't going our way, and how we react to that. If you look at which planets are in your sixth house, so for instance, if it's Cancer there, again, I pick on Cancer, then you might get very emotional when you deal with stress, or you might get very overly flexible and give to others too much, or you could be very willful and be rigid. Or if you're a Virgo, you might deal with stress just by working more and working long hours. Or if you're a Capricorn, you might deal with stress just by avoiding the stressor and just kind of like, deciding to go dancing for 12 hours or whatever, you know. And so it depends on how long the stressor is in your life and how you cope with that. So if you look to your sixth house and you see what planets are in there, there might be more than one planet, more than one sign in your sixth house, or there might be no planets there at all. So, and if there's no planets there at all, then that could mean that you're sick, that you don't really pay that much attention to your health, and you might not need to pay that much attention to your health. Or if there's, you know, a high longevity sign there, then it might mean that that you're healthy, that you're a very robust person. Or if there's a very sensitive sign there, like Pisces, or then it might mean that you have to really focus on the day in and out and always working on preventing your health and things like that. So it gives you a really good impression about what you're dealing with your health. There are other signs too. There's an asteroid called Chiron, which is the wounded healer, and the wounded healer has to do with what wounds we've brought into the world and what we have to focus on healing. And I'm probably, if you all like this, then please let me know, because I would love to continue this topic and explore it more with you and get into more diet and what the diet of the houses is like based on, you know, the physiology and the susceptibilities that we've covered today. I would love to get into Chiron and do a coaching session on Chiron. So as you know, I would like Virtual Health Club for myself personally to be something that I can explore that's a little bit new and not have it be information that I've, you know, repeated for the past 15 years. That's kind of my own personal impression or my own personal feelings about how I want to be involved in Virtual Health Club and above. So I feel like astrology is something that I'm very interested in and something that I want to move towards, but I do want to hear from you, you know, as the first members of Health Club, what you want to hear from me also. So that is very important. I'm definitely going to take that into consideration. And I might also coach more often. I might coach a couple times a month or even more often. I was doing something for the past couple of years, which had a whole different list to it, which was how to be healthy this week. And I was drawing cards, how to be healthy in the mind, the body, and the spirit each week. And I was drawing cards in order to determine you know, what the energy of the week was and how each of us can kind of as a group and as a collective, let's say, be involved this week in dealing with the energies. And that was a lot of fun. That is something that I would like to continue, although I'm not sure at the frequency. And, you know, I'm curating everything too with the other health coaches and the functional doctors and practitioners. And so we're going to make sure that the material covered is broad and does involve the mind, body, spirit. I really want the information to be mind, body, spirit, and body, of course, means nutrition and weight loss and blood sugar and cholesterol and heart disease and all those things that so many people are suffering from, cancer prevention, mood disorders. Dr. Selassie is going to be on the 15th of September talking about the brain, how to have a better brain. She's going to be talking about cognition and memory and nutrients and food and lifestyle habits to help improve your memory as we age and brain boosting. So, but not to get too far ahead, are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Danny. I really appreciate that. So happy to hear that. And does anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, if there's no questions, that's fine, and I'm available all the time as well. And I'm really happy that you all tuned in. And again, this recording, I'm not so great with editing. I'm not quite sure I'm going to edit the dog out, but anyway, I'll try to let people know that it's there so that you don't have to kind of be worried. Okay, thank you, Cindy. You say you'd love to hear this topic and hear more. Great. Yeah, I would love to do it more. And I do also want to announce that our next virtual health club is on fall eating with seasonal foods, and health coach Ali Might is going to be she's a certified integrative and nutrition coach. She's a lifestyle health coach. She's the lifestyle coach, and she's going to be discussing why seasonal foods are important and why they should be used, especially at this time of year as we going to fall. There's so many different foods she's going to be talking about, where to find where to find local and organic foods and what the differences are between conventional and local and organic, the benefits of home gardening. So she's really stretching herself to do a lot here. This is going to be an amazing session. I can't wait to see how she does it. And the trends in current seasonal foods. So what are we eating right now? You know, every once in a while, there's like a new hot food of the season, right? And sea beans, for instance, where do they come from? So, of course, some people have been eating them forever, and that's a spring food, not a fall food. But just for example, I have no idea what Allie's going to discuss in terms of her current seasonal foods, and I'm excited to hear it. And then she's going to do a demo, so that's awesome. She's going to prepare an easy seasonal dish for us from her kitchen, and that's on September 4th from 2 to 3 p.m. And so make sure you tune into that. And again, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. It's been real fun, and I'm looking forward to this season of Virtual Health Club. Please share far and wide. We'd love to get as many people enrolled as possible. Right now we have about just in the young 70s, so a good amount. Of course, not everybody's going to be able to tune in live, but then they will tune in after the fact, and you'll have the opportunity to listen again too. So thanks so much. I'm going to sign off. And have a wonderful day.